Need to download my copy of Call of Cthulhu. And number one. Oh. Okay, time to go. Today's sponsor is Warlock Sanctum Games, professional GMs for hire. Please check them out in the description below. This is the Awkward GM Corbin, and welcome to Beyond D&D. Today we will be discussing Hunter the Vigil 2nd Edition, the most requested game for me to cover so far. Hunter the Vigil is a standalone RPG in the Chronicles of Darkness setting, which centers around mortal hunters who hunt supernatural monsters that prey on humanity. If you've watched a TV show like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Supernatural, you probably have a good idea of what a hunter is. Just to clarify, I will only be covering Hunter the Vigil 2nd Edition. I'm not familiar with 1st Edition or the Old World of Darkness version, Hunter the Reckoning. Not Hunter the Requiem. That would be a weird amalgamation of Hunter and Vampire the Requiem. Anyway, unlike the other game lines, hunters aren't complicated. They are humans who hunt monsters. And that's it. Usually your character discovered that monsters exist and hurt people. Hunters aren't just anyone who kills a monster, though. To be a hunter is to be focused entirely on hunting monsters. Oftentimes, victims of monster attacks or the family of victims become hunters themselves. That being said, hunter culture is very informal, but some key ideas do persist. All hunters are part of the vigil against darkness. Many hunters might not use this term, but the idea of protecting humanity from supernatural evil persists across all hunters. The code is an individual hunter's pledge to fight the darkness. Usually the code is what the hunter promises to do to avoid becoming a monster like the ones they hunt. Such pledges can be not harming humans or letting a monster live. More commonly used terms are those that describe the size of the hunter groups encountered in-game. Cells are your typical small group of hunters. Usually this is a player group, but it's usually a tight-knit group of hunters, either unorganized or part of a larger group. Compacts are groups that are usually covering an entire region, but can be large informal groups made up of multiple cells that assist one another. Conspiracies are global organizations that tend to have the best equipped cells in the game. These are organizations that have survived long enough to have arsenals of tools and magic to combat monsters. The three sizes of hunter groups coincide with the three tiers of play in Hunter. Tier 1 hunters aren't very different from normal mortals, except they get access to tactics and professional training for free. Tier 2 hunters get access to their compact's network of agents. This is much more support than Tier 1 hunters get. Tier 3 hunters not only get access to their conspiracy's help, but also access to endowments, which come in the form of magic-like weapons and equipment. In some cases, endowments even take on the form of spells. In Tier 2 and 3, you also get access to the status merit for free in your organization, and bonus benefits for having status in a compact or conspiracy. This is listed on that compact or conspiracies page in Chapter 1 of the book. Just like normal mortals, hunters use integrity to track how stable they are. The lower it gets, the more okay they are with performing heinous acts. At 0 integrity, they risk becoming slashers, essentially serial killers, although I'll go into more detail about slashers later on. Compacts come in many flavors and each have at least 3 sub-factions to add more nuance. The Long Night are Christian hunters who believe the rapture is nearing. The Loyalists of Thule are descendants of German occultists who seek to do penance for the atrocities committed by the Nazis during World War II. Network Zero are technology-based hunters who leverage social media and the internet as their weapons. Nine Stars is a Hong Kong-based group of detectives and police officers that focus on hunting down serial killers and supernatural slashers. Null Mysteries are hunters who use science and peer review to research the paranormal. Sworn are indigenous hunters that live in cities to help the local communities. The Union are blue-collar workers who hunt monsters, originating from labor unions of the 20th century that realized monsters were preying on the working class. The Ashwood Abbey are hunters who hunt for pleasure and the thrill of it. The Ashwood Abbey is present in the book as an example of creating your own compact, although they were a core compact in first edition, so don't discount them as a homebrew. The rulebook does allow you to create your own compacts and has instructions on how to do so. Conspiracies are the largest groups of hunters presented in the game. The Ascending Ones are a group of alchemists that originated in ancient Egypt. The endowments you get from being an Ascending One are elixirs, which are essentially magic potions. The Chiron Group is a European-based company that views supernatural monsters as assets to be collected. Hunters get Tharmatech from Chiron as their endowment, essentially surgical enhancements harvested from the organs of monsters. The Council of Bones is a conspiracy that collapses and reforms often, and focuses on undead threats. Hunters get access to paraspiritism, which are techniques that allow them to interact with the dead. The Lucifuge is a conspiracy built around the mortal descendants of the devil Lucifer. Hunters of the Lucifuge get access to castigations, which are essentially demonic spells. The Malleus Maleficarum are a conspiracy created by the Catholic Church. These hunters get access to benedictions, which are prayer rituals that grant miracles from God to help them. Task Force Valkyrie is an American-based government conspiracy that focuses on science versus the supernatural. These hunters get access to the Advanced Armory Endowment, which includes a lot of futuristic technologies that can bring them on par with the monsters they hunt. Vanguard Serial Crimes Unit is a conspiracy of psychics that work as law enforcement consultants. Hunters within the Vanguard Serial Crimes Unit may volunteer to be subjected to the Wintergreen process to use teleinformatics, mental abilities that are unlocked via drugs and chemicals. Tactics are group actions that hunters can perform together, with one hunter acting as the primary actor and the others assisting. Of the ones listed in the book, I prefer the controlled emulation tactic, as fire is often a common bane for monsters, and if it's not a monster's bane, it still probably does a lot of damage. Monster lore is also one of my favorites, as it helps identify a monster's weaknesses. Hunter can easily use the other game lines to create antagonists, such as vampires and werewolves, but it should be noted that the other game lines are written to be complex player characters more so than just NPCs. If you don't feel like using one of the other game lines or have a unique monster idea, Hunter the Vigil has rules for generic monsters that can be used to emulate any creature you can think of. Unlike other supernatural creatures, monsters may add their potency rating to resist or contest any supernatural ability. Slashers are essentially serial killers, but in the horror movie type way. They range from the more human rippers to the supernatural scourges. Oftentimes, slashers are created when a hunter reaches zero integrity, causing them to start hunting people instead of just monsters. While I may go over it in a future video, slashers are broken down into 10 subtypes, 5 for scourges and 5 for rippers. Tainted places are rules for supernatural locations that can act as dangerous locations for hunters to explore. Every tainted place has a list of powers that it can use as long as they are triggered by an event. For instance, a tainted place might cause all electricals to stop working at the stroke of midnight, or those who steal an item from the location are hexed. Even though hunters have a variety of tools at their disposal, they are still human. As such, they are fragile both physically and mentally compared to the other game lines. I feel it's important to highlight how hunters must carefully plan in order to defeat more powerful monsters. Hunters risk turning into the monsters they fight, not just by being turned into a vampire or a ghost, which can happen, but if a person is using more and more morally questionable methods, when do they stop being human and start being a monster? Since hunters experience a different world than normal people, it's interesting to have players interact with the mundane world through the eyes of someone who knows the true horror that exists in the world. Protecting family and loved ones from knowledge of the supernatural can help create drama for player characters. A key aspect of horror I'd like to reiterate here is that not every mystery needs a satisfying answer. The players may know a monster exists, but they may not know where it came from or if there are more out there. If I were to run Hunter the Vigil, the campaign would depend on what tier the players wanted to play. At tier 1, players have no organization to call support from. I'd like the mystery to be localized to a city or town and involve more and more supernatural events occurring that have grabbed the attention of the players. At Tier 2, I feel like I could run a multi compact task force working together to investigate attacks across New England or elsewhere. I could even give players each an individual compact goal that might go against the main missions, such as taking a monster in alive for the Null Mysterious, or to upload the monster hunt to YouTube for Network Zero. Tier 3, I feel like the various conspiracies are much less inclined to work together, so I'd probably ask the players to choose one conspiracy for the whole group. The task I'd run is taking on a powerful monster who has become a powerful figure in public life. The types of missions conspiracies work in, I feel, lean more into the high risk and high danger. They don't care if a bunch of teenagers die once a year at Lover's Leap. They care if a politician is being mind controlled by an elder vampire, or if a haunted house is a nexus point for interdimensional travel. I'd like to run a series of one shots in any case and allow players to keep their characters between the one shots as long as they survive. I've got so many ideas for Hunter the Vigil, it's really hard to nail down just one idea. I used to play games like Secret World and watch shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Supernatural, so there's a lot of material out there to inspire you into running Hunter the Vigil. If there's one actual play I can recommend if you're interested in Hunter the Vigil, it's Hololive English's Mythbreakers series. I think all of the players are new, and while it can derail into old World of Darkness lore, it is funny and entertaining. They did run this using Hunter the Vigil first edition, so the mechanics may be a little bit off, but it is still a great insight into how to run Hunter the Vigil. Please hit subscribe if you enjoyed my content, and thank you for watching. If you'd like to toss a couple bucks my way, you can tip me through my Ko-fi account through PayPal, link in the description below. As always, you can find an affiliate link to purchase Hunter the Vigil in the description below. Doing so adds no extra cost to you and does help the channel out a lot. I really hope this video has helped you get a better understanding of Hunter the Vigil and whether or not it's for you. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one. Second outro time. These are some shows and movies that you can watch to help you better get into the feel for Hunter the Vigil. This is my last Chronicles of Darkness game line that I needed to cover. Honestly, I have nothing left to cover, and I really hope Paradox comes out with more game lines in the future, or maybe even a update to the existing ones. A lot of what's happening right now, as far as I know, with Chronicles of Darkness is that they're still putting out a lot of the content from Kickstarters, like extra supplemental material and stuff like that. But as far as new content goes, like new game lines or a new edition, that doesn't seem to be on the horizon. That being said, you could always go to Storyteller's Vault through DriveThruRPG and purchase some of the user-generated content that's on there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.